Hello, hello. Ooh, look at that, it works. So I got this fun clip-on microphone so I can move around. So can you hear me all right? I'm guessing you can. Awesome. So we're going to start. It is 2:26. Oh, man, I thought it was going to be right on time. So I am Beagle Bourgault. I work at VSAC with the Talent Search Program. So that's one of our outreach programs that works with students across the state and trying to guide them toward their future decisions. So today we are here, look at that, to talk about finding the right fit, doing a college search. So what we're going to do is cover a few things about doing that search so you can think about where might you apply to school, and then of course ultimately where are you going to go. But this is sort of like part of the beginning of the process. Now I know we have some folks online and I can't see you. If you're in the room and you're a student, how many of you are like sophomores or juniors looking ahead to the process? Okay, that gives me a sense. I'm going to assume that there's a similar proportion of folks online. Has anybody here, just raise your hand if you've done anything to like plan your search for schools yet, or are you at the very beginning? Anything at all? Okay, not very much, a little bit. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that. A couple things to note. There are handouts on the table. Some of them pertain to this workshop. Some of them pertain to the other two that are going to be happening in this room. So one thing to note is that if there's a workshop in a different room and you have maybe discovered for the first time you can't be in two places at once, they're going to be inside the door of the other rooms as well. So if there's another one and you're like, oh, I really wish I could have gone to that, you can at least grab the handouts. And of course, they're also online as well. But if you want those paper copies, you can pick those up. Yeah, so let's kind of dive in here. So I want to point out this. This is one of the handouts. So this college comparison chart is one way that you can use to stay organized or to set your priorities as you are thinking about where might you apply. So you can see there are a lot of categories on here. If you have this in your possession right now, or if you have something to write on, I'd recommend you have that in front of you. Because ideally what we're going to end with is having you think about like what are some of your priorities for your own college search. So if you have something to write on, I recommend taking a minute for that. What this does is essentially gives you the opportunity to say, all right, here's some schools I'm thinking about applying to. Do they meet these criteria? Check off the boxes. How well do they? And set some priorities. So it's one way to stay organized. All right. So as you're thinking about, you know what I should do? Actually, I should let this guy introduce himself. I'm just like diving right in.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Richardson. I'm a senior here at the University of Vermont. I am an intern also with VSAC through the Gear Up program. I also, as additional to being here as a UVM student, I work with UVM Upward Bound as well. I was just offered a position to coordinate a new UVM Gear Up bridge program. And yeah, I'm going to be assisting here with the presentation, offering more perspectives on what it's like to be a college student, what you might consider when answering these questions, et cetera.
All right. So what David's going to help us out with is, along the way during this presentation, we're going to ask you some questions, hence having something to write on. So we'll ask you some questions, encourage you to write it down, talk with the person next to you, friend, parent, guardian, anybody else, maybe a stranger, if you want to take a risk. Take a minute. When we ask that question, write down like, okay, what would your answer to this question be? David is going to give us his response to that, what he was thinking about at the time when he was doing the college search, so you can get someone's real perspective in real time. All right, so one thing to be thinking about is types of programs. So you want to be looking overall at where am I going to go. Even just looking at this, it's like, oh my God, there's a list of all these things to consider. So understand that, as you heard some of our previous speakers say, there is a lot to think about. Even when you're like, forget the financing piece, like just think about where to go. It can be overwhelming, it can be a lot, it can be daunting, but you got this thing, just know that. There are tons of schools out there. This is the first piece to look at, how do you narrow down that list? If you've ever used a college search tool, or if you do that after this, you just open it up and like do a search and put in no criteria at all, you're gonna get like 4,000 schools. Now, that's way too many to apply to, if you ask me. So what you wanna do is narrow it down. This list right here that you can see is one of the first ways to do that. So it's just really thinking about the big picture of what matters to you. So one is, how long a program do you wanna do? What kind of program do you wanna do? So just to give you an example, like a certificate typically is a short program, might be a year. It's very focused on a specific type of learning. It's very focused on a specific career path. So for example, you might get a certificate in bookkeeping. So it's 1 year. It's short compared to other programs. When you're done, you have a credential so that you can move forward with a career in bookkeeping. When you look at a 2-year program, that's another way to consider that is an associate degree. So a 2-year program is an associate degree. We call it 2 years because if you're a full-time student during the school year, it would typically take you 2 years to complete that program. So that's an associate degree. A bachelor's degree is a 4-year program. And again, you're a full-time student for 4 years. You would get a bachelor's degree after that time. Now, we refer to them as 2-year or 4-year. That's not true for everybody. Someone may be a part-time student, takes you more than 2 years to get an associate degree, or more than 4 years to get a bachelor's degree, or maybe you take classes in the summer, it actually takes you less time. So it's just shorthand to know that. Those are typically a degree that is focused on a specific field at some point, and we're going to talk more about that. A 5-year combined program, if you haven't heard of that, typically is a bachelor's program that allows you to also get a master's degree in a shortened amount of time. So if you were to do those separately, typically you're a full-time student, 4 years to get a bachelor's degree, 2 years to get a master's degree, which is a specific focus, even more focus in a particular field. It's going to take you 6 years. Some schools say, you know what, we have a shortened version. You can do it in 5 years, so it saves you a whole year of time, of money, but it's very focused. It means there's usually not a lot of flexibility. So you have to kind of know what you want, but those are available. Another thing to think about is sort of like the kind of school or the size of school you want to go to. So a university typically offers graduate degrees like a master's degree. So you get your bachelor's degree, you could continue on, or maybe you switch schools, go to a university to get a master's degree. Usually they have more programs. They're generally bigger. Do you want a school like that, or do you want something different? And then, do you want a school that's very specialized? There are schools that are, say, they just focus on engineering. If that's what you want to do, maybe that's the kind of school. Or are you really not quite sure what you want to do? So you say, I want to go to a school that offers a lot more. It's broader, it's more general, so you can change your mind as you go, or make up your mind as you go. And then finally, the last piece on here is thinking about how do you want to take classes? For a lot of folks who are listening to this, I know that you're thinking like, oh, I want to get away from home, I want to live on a campus, but that's not for everybody either. I mean, I'm guessing everybody here has done at least some kind of online classwork. You can do a whole program that's just online, or you can do something that meets in the middle, where you do some in-person classes, some that are online. So what works for you is another thing to think about. Do you want to have the option of online classes if you're on campus? Do you want to have the option of in-person campuses if you're mostly online? All right, so here's the first question for you. So would you rather attend classes in person where you can make strong connections with your classmates and instructor, but you have a strict class schedule, or take mostly online courses where you have flexibility for timing and work, but might not make the same strong connections with classmates and the instructors? Take a second, if you're a student, think about your answer to that question.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit of what I was thinking when I was applying to UVM. I applied to college in the fall of 2021. If you remember 2020 and 2021, we were just coming out of a pandemic where I was online for a year and a half. So I really didn't want to be online anymore. And I'm from St. Johnsbury, stay in St. Johnsbury, go to Linden or CCV. It wasn't something I wanted to do. So I was really trying to get out of St. Johnsbury and come to UVM and be physical on campus once again after the pandemic.
All right, so again, write this down because there's going to be a quiz at the end. All right. So another thing, obviously, is what are you going to study? So a major, just so you understand the term, is the major thing you focus on when you go to school. For some programs, that is almost all of what you do. For some, it might be only 2/3 of what you do. So you might go to a four-year school, you're getting a bachelor's degree, you take a variety of classes because the school requires you to take a broad width of classes, but then you also have your major and you're very focused on a whole lot of classes in that field. You graduate with a degree in that major. Doesn't mean you're sort of like can only do classes in that area. You have some flexibility to learn some other things, but that's essentially what a major is. You're choosing what your major is. You can sometimes choose that before you start. Often you can choose that once you actually get to the school. So just questions to be thinking about. What do you want to learn more about? So one of the things to think about is, what do you like to learn now? Is there something you just really are excited about? You would just love to learn more about that thing. So that's one way to think about it. That's different than what career do I want to have? Just what do you like to learn about? So that's one thing to think about. What subjects interest you in school now? So maybe you love math. Oh my God, I just love to take math classes. I'm so good at them. Maybe you're the opposite of that, and you say, I really don't ever want to take a math class again, but I love to read and talk about the books I read, or whatever it is. Think about the classes you take now and the kinds of classes you might be interested in taking once you continue afterwards. What programs or study fit your learning style or your academic goals? So again, that's something like, I love to take classes online. I love having the freedom of that and being able to think on my own time, or I really love that engagement in the classroom. Like if you love those small classes where you get to talk a lot, or you just want to sit in the back and just listen because that really works for you. So what kind of learning style do you have? How do you learn best is another thing to think about. What do I hope to do, and how does that connect to my educational plan? So this is the question that's like, all right, I want to be an engineer because I want to learn how to build bridges, or whatever it might be. I want to teach fourth graders because I love kids. I had a chance to do that, and that's really what I want to do. If you have a specific career goal, that can inform where you might go, what school you might go to. You don't have to have that. So be aware that, like, if you know, I want this specific career, awesome. If you think, oh, well, I want to be a dental hygienist, excellent. Or, well, I love the idea of working in healthcare, but I don't really know what I want to do. That might be one general path as you search for schools. And then you may be in a place where you're just like, I really have no idea what I want to do. And so these other questions might be more pertinent because you're trying to find a school that is going to fit what works for you, even if you're not sure exactly what you want to do for a career down the road. So one way to think about it is, we know some kind of education after high school can really make a difference. It is going to give you more options. It is going to enhance your earnings, all of those things. That can be really hard when you just don't know what you want to do. So first of all, know that you have some time to figure that out before you graduate. And then even once you go to school, if you're in the right kind of program, you can do some figuring out then. Okay, and then finally, what if I have no idea? So I guess I already talked about that. So again, you don't have to know if you really have no idea. That's really important to know because you want to be able to go to a school where you can say, I'm going to study these things or take a broad range of classes, maybe choose, maybe change my mind later. It's okay to do that. All right, so here's the question. Would you rather go to a school that encourages you to explore a whole lot of classes and fields of study, or would you rather go to school where you dive right in that field of interest? So think about that one for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to definitely really depend school by school. I knew what I was going to do when I was applying to college. I wanted to study political science and economics. And so I applied to UVM and just wanted to dive right in. However, based on school by school, UVM is a college designed around liberal education where a quarter of what you're going to be learning is things outside of your majors, elective type of classes, to really give you a broad scope. So even though I really wanted to dive in and maybe just really focus all of my time on these projects, you are designed to be learning a lot of different things to broaden your perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like UVM, other schools have that same thing where they say, well, you have to take at least one class in this area, this area, this area. So you get exposure to a lot of things. Or, like David, you can just dive right in to the thing you want, but maybe you still have to take those other classes as well. So again, think about, for you, which would you rather do? All right, so the size of a school can matter. Now, this has two definitions. One is how many students, and the other one is really how big is the campus itself. So there are schools that are very small, 100 students, and there are schools that are very big, tens of thousands of students. So one of the things for you to be thinking about is, do you want to go to the kind of school where it's really big? Nobody's going to know your name. My high school is super small, and I want to go to a place that's not that small. I really want the experience of going to a big school. Maybe the opposite is true. I really like my small school, and I want to go to a school that is similar to that. It's like it's going to make me feel more comfortable, more safe. I'm going to get to know people better. Typically, a smaller school with fewer students means you have smaller classes, so you might have the opportunity to get to know professors more. That can be true at a big school. As you go along, your classes tend to get smaller as well, but are you comfortable with the idea of being in a lecture where there's, 200, 300, 400 students, and you're sitting there and it's not a lot of interaction? So the size of a school can matter. Another piece of that is geography. So are you on a really big campus that's like in a city, and if you get, where you're living to get to class, you have to take a bus? Or do you want to be able to just like roll out of bed and not take a shower and go to class because it's a 10-minute walk, which a lot of people love to do. So the size of the campus can really matter. Some perspective on that is that the biggest high school in Vermont is considered a small college, the same number of students, like the very biggest. So a small school would be like 2,000 students. Like there isn't a high school in Vermont that's quite that big. So just think about like even if you are at CVU, which is a really big high school, or South Burlington's a really big high school, compared to other schools in this state, it would be considered a very small college in a lot of ways. So keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple things here, and then you get another question. So again, location, do you want to be in a city? Do you like the idea of living in a really small town? Do you want to be where it's really rural? Do you want to be able to, on the weekend, go snowmobiling or hiking? Or do you want to be able to visit museums that you can walk down the road to that you don't have access to in Vermont? So those are the kinds of things to think about. Do you like the idea of the hustle and bustle of a city? Do you like the idea of it being more quiet? Do you like the idea of, well, I like having access to a city. That would be great, but I don't want to be in a city. You can be sort of more suburban. So there are colleges, all different kinds. So personality is a little fuzzy. The best way to get a sense of that is to go to a campus. That's not always possible. Colleges have lots of tools on their websites to be able to give you a sense of that. They often have videos that are students talking about their experiences. You can do a virtual tour to get a sense of the campus overall. So even if you can't get there, you might get a sense of what is happening, what's the vibe, what kind of people are on that campus. So that's just one thing to think about. It's not like clearly defined. It's sort of like, how do you think you might fit into a campus like that? That's what that means. And then one thing to know is that there are schools that have kind of a primary focus, like a military academy. So if you like the idea of a school where that is something on campus that matters to you, you can narrow your search down that way. If you want a single gender school, if you want to go to an all-women's school, that is an option. You can narrow your search down that way. So again, all of these are factors. You can mix and match and combine these things to, for you to see, well, what if I did a search and I only looked for this, or I added this, or I changed that? You can do all of those things. Again, these are all factors to be thinking about. And then supports and opportunities available. So maybe you have special learning needs and you really want to make sure those are addressed. So you want to make sure that's on campus. Maybe there's something that you really like to do. You really love to be in the school play every fall, and you want to make sure that that is something you can do on campus. I don't want to major in that. I want to study something else, but I want to have that opportunity. That's an option on a lot of campuses. Okay. So the question for you, would you rather go to a school where the campus is integrated into a city, but maybe there's less a sense of campus community, or go to a school that has a close-knit, strong campus community, but maybe not as connected to the town where the campus is located? So think about that for yourself.
Yeah, so when I was applying to college, this is something that I was generally thinking about. As I mentioned before, I'm from St. Johnsbury. I went to Danville High School. If you know anything about Danville High School is super small. My graduating class was about 30-ish, 33 kids, which I knew everyone on a first-name basis. So I was really considering, where do I want to go to college? What is going to be the size of my classes? Do I want to be in somewhere like Vermont State University, where I know everyone, similar to high school, but still a little bit bigger, et cetera? Or do I want to come to UVM, where you have 10,000, 12,000 students? It's integrated more into a suburban type of community, and maybe you can blend it a little bit more. I think UVM when I toured, was a really nice blend between you have your own little bubble here on campus, but also if I really want to, I can go downtown. I'm able to feel safe on campus. I'm able to go to Winooski. I'm able to go to downtown Burlington, South Burlington, et cetera. So it was a really nice blend between the two worlds that was able to push me in the direction of being more comfortable in a city type environment.
Thank you. So yeah, think about that for yourself. For any of these, also to point out, it's not just a right or wrong answer. Maybe you think, yeah, you know, I kind of like the idea of a city, and then maybe you go and do a school visit because you're like, I want to go to Boston, and you go to see Boston University, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. That's okay too. All right, so another question for you. Would you rather attend a school where most students live together in dorms and have opportunities to make a lot of new friends because everyone's living together, or attend a school where most people live off campus and you don't have to pay the school for housing and meals? You still have to pay for that, but you're not like part of school-based housing. So which would you rather do? Live on campus with a lot of people, or have a place on your own outside of the campus?
Yeah, I think this is something that gets kind of lost on a lot of students that are applying to college. It's something I didn't think about when I was applying to college that I wish I did. So for example, a school like UVM, once you become a junior, you are forced to live off campus. There's no housing on campus for you, which is really expensive. Living in Burlington is very expensive. You're going to be paying $1,500 a month for rent in a 4-bedroom apartment. So that's something that I wish I had thought about when I was applying. Being able to live on campus is super great. I've been able to live on campus for 4 years now, and that's something I truly appreciate in working with UVM. I'm able to make sure that my needs were met, but that's not possible for the other 5,000, 6,000 students that are part of the junior and senior classes.
And just to point out too, like UVM, that's a great example, because it's like you have to live on campus and then you can't live on campus. Other schools, most people live on campus the entire time, and it's really unusual that someone would live off campus. And then there's a school like, say, Concordia up in Montreal. They literally have no student housing, but they're in a big city. So, you know, everyone has to find their own place. They will give you some assistance in doing that when you are first going there. But like opposite ends of the spectrum, with UVM sort of in the middle of something like that. All right, so selectivity is something you may have heard about. So how hard is it to get into that school? Now, this is not just a straightforward thing, oh, I'm an all-A student, I would get in, or not. Selectivity can mean a few things. One is simply, how many students does a school accept? So obviously schools like Ivy League schools, tons of people apply there. Their acceptance rate is like 8% or something like that. It varies year to year. But it's very, very small number of students who apply who get accepted. So if you think you want to go to a school that is that selective, you can apply. Don't expect that you will get accepted. So that's the kind of school that students, especially if you're like a really good student or you want to, sort of reach for that, great, awesome schools, but don't have the idea that like, oh man, I'm so disappointed that I didn't get in. Like, you should expect not to get in if it's that selective, and be happy if you do get in. So one thing you can look up for every school is that general overall acceptance rate, how many students get in. The other thing to think about is, are you looking to study in a program that is very selective? So for example, nursing. There are not a ton of nursing programs out there compared to the number of students who want to study that. So those particular programs are very selective. So maybe like the UVM overall acceptance rate is one thing, but for nursing, it's much more selective. Champlain College down the road, video game design program, awesome program. It's one of the best in the country. Very selective compared to their overall rate. So it's just one thing to think about. If what you're studying, you can talk to the school and say, you know, how selective is this program? What are my chances of getting in? And now the reason you want to find that out is just to have realistic expectations. Because the worst is that you don't even think about that and you apply to all these schools and you're like, yeah, I'll get into one of them, I'll go somewhere, and you don't get in anywhere. You don't want that to happen. So you want to go in informed about how hard might it be to get into some of these programs. One thing to be thinking about, of course, is like, you may have heard this idea of like the reach school, the safety school. Like there is some truth to that. You want to apply to at least some schools or at least one school where you feel very confident you will be accepted, so you have at least one option. So if you only apply to schools that are very selective, chances are, just looking at the odds, you won't get in anywhere. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. So you really want to be thinking about, well, here's a school that meets my criteria, I feel good about the idea that I could go there, and I'm likely to get in. So you want to have a range. Not everyone has the same number of schools. Some people apply to 20, some people apply to 5, some people apply to 2. It's really up to you in terms of how confident you are about getting in, the kind of program you're looking at. All these factors combined are going to determine that. And then another thing to be thinking about, of course, is just like talking to people who have been there. If you know someone who has been to a school, if there's an alum, someone who graduated from your high school who you know, talk to your school counselor about what they know about a school. Like, how hard is it to get in? It's just one factor, but like, do they know anything else about the school? Is this a good fit for me? So those are all things to be thinking about. You have a question? Can I ask you to talk into the mic? Just so we can, for folks online.
Oh, Jimmy.
Thank you.
So for the example of if there's a specific program, like let's say you wanted to go to UVM and you wanted to apply for the nursing program, but you're like, well, if I didn't get into the nursing program, I'd still want to go to UVM. Would that be 2 separate applications? Is this a school-by-school basis? Or is that just like, if you want to go the special program, that's just what you apply for?
That is a good question. Often, you do have to apply, for programs that are more selective, you have to apply for that specific program. Some schools will say, we did not accept you into this program, but we still would like to accept you. Sometimes what even happens is they will say, you're not into this program, we will accept you. Here are the things to do to reapply to that program next year after you have a year of school under your belt. So it really can vary school to school. But something like nursing, you know, it's like, I'm telling people about, you want to apply to nursing school, like apply to a bunch. Like you got to apply to a lot because it's just, they're just so selective, you have no idea. It's not you. It's not like we don't want you. It's just who knows who else is applying, what the pool looks like for them. So that's one thing to think about is like, you could have your heart set on a particular school and a particular program. Maybe they accept you and you could say, well, I'll try again next year. No guarantees. Or you go to a different school that does accept you. So you just got to keep an open mind. So no right or wrong path there, but that's kind of how that works. Okay. All right. So housing is another thing. Touched on this a little bit. So dorms, you may have heard of. Essentially, it's a big building. Lots of people live in it. Those can vary a lot. Could be a huge 10-story building where 1,000 students live. It could be a very small house that has a few rooms. Maybe you have a roommate, maybe you don't, maybe you have 2 roommates. All kinds of things to think about for housing. Do you like that idea? Would you like to live on your own? Do you want to live at home and commute? Are you doing online classes? So that's not even a factor. So housing is one thing to be thinking about just in terms of the type of housing it is on campus. Do you want to have the option to live off campus maybe later? So all of those are things you can find out from the school itself. You can find out in general, do they have housing? If you use a college search tool, but you're not going to be able to get into the nitty-gritty necessarily, so sometimes you have to dig a little deeper with the school itself. And again, the living requirement that Dave talked about, like, are they requiring you to live on campus? For how long? How does that work? Sometimes housing is focused on a particular community, so it could be like wellness housing where everybody who's living in that building says, you know, I'm sort of committed to a more healthy lifestyle. I don't really want to drink. I don't want to smoke. I just don't want that as part of my experience, and it would be great to live around other people who feel the same way. Sometimes housing is focused on a particular major, so that's another thing. So if that's something that might matter to you, like, oh, I'd love to be around some like-minded people, that may be an option for you. All right, so another thing to think about is not just like we're going to sleep at night, but what are the other spaces on campus? So are there great spaces to hang out? Are there spaces outside? Are there places like in your dorm that you might live in? Is there like a student center where students gather? How's the dining experience? Maybe people gather there. So what are the places on campus that students tend to go? And again, all of this, is going to matter to different people. Maybe you're doing online campus, and it doesn't really matter. So those are all questions to be thinking about. And then again, we put this on here again with like other ones. What do current students on campus have to say? One thing to know about that is that sometimes, like I said, the school's actual website will give you information about that. Like they want students to talk about their experience and kind of sell it. Maybe take it with a grain of salt, but like that is students on the campus talking about their experience, so it can be useful. If you have any other way of learning about what the campus is like from someone who has actually been there, recommend taking that route and trying to learn more. All right, so a question for you. Would you rather attend a school that has a lot of clubs, say, or your favorite extracurriculars, so like maybe, again, like you want to be able to be involved in drama, but it's not your dream school. It's not the perfect school, but it really has that thing that you want. Or would you rather go to the school where most of your criteria is met, but it doesn't really have that thing that you'd really love to be able to do? So think about that.
Yeah, I think that I decided on UVM because I thought it was it's a very good example of a school that wasn't my dream school, but I think it knocked off a lot of the categories I was looking for. I didn't decide on a school until that May 1st deadline. I remember I was touring this campus and St. Mike's May 1st with my Upward Bound counselor, and we didn't know what we were going to do. When I toured here, though, it felt like somewhere where I think I could have fit in. They had a lot of activism. They had a great political science economics department. They had really close dorms where I was able to get to class very easy, very accessible, things like that. When you're choosing a college, you're going to be weighing the pros and cons and the costs and what you're willing to sacrifice Are you willing to sacrifice X to save on money? Are you willing to pay more to get this, et cetera? It's something that you're going to be having to do a lot when you're deciding on college.
All right, another question for you. Would you rather attend a school in a place that looks and feels like Vermont, maybe New Hampshire, maybe Maine, New York, similar to where you are? Or would you rather go someplace farther away where things are just totally different? Maybe you meet people who are very different than you. So think about what would you rather do? Would you rather want to have that sort of comfort of home or something that's very new and different?
Yeah, I think, again, I think UVM, when I was applying to colleges, I thought that UVM was a great balance between being in Vermont, and when you're in Vermont, I was able to come over here from St. Johnsbury, literally the other eastern side of the state, come over to the other western side of the state, and Vermonters are Vermonters. You're surrounded by the same types of people and a great culture. So I think it was a really great balance between being an hour and a half away, depending on how fast you're driving, of course, and being able to surround yourself with different but also very similar types of people where you're able to get that great balance.
Was there anybody else from Danville who went here?
Yeah, no, a lot of people from Danville went here. I had a couple upperclassmen who graduated a year or 2 years before me who had come here who were great resources for me. I also had a couple people from my graduating class who came here. Of course, I was able to bring my dog to college as well. My dog lives with me in the dorm, and so that's super, super cool.
The reason I ask that is because for some folks, especially if you go to school that's fairly close to UVM, you're like, I don't want to go there. Like, I know so many people who are going to go there. Can't tell you the number of people who have said, oh, I went to UVM, and yeah, a lot of people from my high school went there, and I never saw them. Or, you're good friends, so you make a point to see them. So it's not like it's going to be just like my high school, because I know a bunch of other people. Like, you have the choice to do your own thing. All right, so one more question. Would you rather spend your Saturday night at your college football game or hang out in a chill setting with your friends on the weekend? For some folks, sports, say, or big college events are really important? Do you want to be able to participate in that? Not necessarily play, but like be a fan? Or you're like, it doesn't really matter to me. I just kind of want to do my own thing with my friends.
Yeah, even though I had a lot of friends that were going here, I'm definitely a type of person that I like to kind of do my own thing a lot of the time, and when I was choosing UVM, it was really great because I could go to, say, a basketball game in the Patrick Gym, maybe it's a March Madness game, et cetera, or I could really stay in my dorm, maybe I can play video games, play a little NBA 2K, and it'd be fun. And oftentimes on a Saturday night, that's what I found myself doing, just relaxing and trying to prep myself and relax and prep myself for the week ahead.
Another thing to think about, too, is that, ideally, there's something that you've never experienced that you get to do. So my nephew went to UVM, and he got really into broom ball. That was his thing. He just, every week, he, so looked forward to doing that. He'd never even heard of that before. So there are things like that that you might experience. Okay, so cost and affordability, obviously, is a big one. So you can look all you want at the schools that might be perfect for you, but it is really important to look at the cost of the school. I mean, years ago, it used to be like, just find the schools. It's probably going to work out somehow. It does not work that way anymore. School or going to college or any kind of program has a cost. It often can be extremely expensive. However, you can do some research about what does that look like at the schools that you want to apply to. So one thing you can find out is, what is the cost? Everybody can tell you that. You go to the website, there's something about cost. What is the cost? That is not the same as what you will pay. So every school has what's called a net price calculator. You can do some research to find out, for my family, we have 4 people in the family, this is about how much my parents make, and we have some savings, and you plug in some numbers, and it will come out with things like, it looks like you might be eligible for this scholarship, this. Your actual net cost could be this. Here's an estimate. It's not a perfect thing, but it can give you an idea. If I'm applying to this school, I can expect some kind of aid. Another thing to be thinking about is, do they offer things like a merit aid? So there are different kinds of money that can be offered. Some schools will say, we are only going to give money to students based on their family's financial need. Some schools will offer academic scholarships or other types of scholarships. So, for example, you apply to a school and they're like, wow, we love having students who have done well enough academically. They're from Vermont. We don't have a lot of Vermonters. We're going to give you a big chunk of money so that you are enticed to come to our school. So they'll let you know before you have to decide, and you now have a better idea of what's going to cost you. You may find that out in some way or get an estimate ahead of time. You may not. You really can't know till the very end. Once you've applied, they will tell you, here's what you can get for aid. You have to go through the whole process we're not going to get into right now. But you can get a sense. People like me, our family circumstances, what do those people typically pay at this school? What you don't want is to be totally surprised at the end and you realize, I can't afford any of these schools. It's just not going to work out. So do your research ahead of time. Take that into account as you're doing your research. So NEBHE, N-E-B-H-E, New England Board of Higher Education. This is a program where if you are going to a public school, such as UVM, in New England, there are many public schools that have said, we're going to be part of this program. We will give a discounted tuition if a program is not offered in your state. So for example, marine biology is not offered at UVM because we don't have a marine. But you want to go to Rhode Island and study marine biology, they will give you a discount to go there because you live in New England and they are part of this program. So that website, if you just Google it, you can see what programs are part of this. So maybe what you're hoping to study, there is a discount at a school somewhere in New England. So it's worth looking into, because sometimes you'd be surprised at some of the programs that are part of the program. So again, with selectivity, again, this idea that maybe apply to a school you feel like you're going to get into, do the same thing with the finances. So when you do that homework around like how much might it cost to go there, make sure you're applying to a school where if I get in, I can figure out a way to pay for this. And again, you need to, if you want to learn more about the financing, you can attend the workshops later on. All right, so here's the question. Would you rather attend your dream school no matter the cost? Maybe you have to borrow a lot of money to go there, or would you rather say, well, I'll go to my third choice school because it's going to be way less costly for me? So that's a question for you to think about.
Yeah, I think that when I was applying to schools that I was having to, I come from a very low income household. I'm a first-gen student and I came from a very, very low income household. So cost is something that I had to consider. I didn't have a lot of family support in that respect. But, so UVM was ultimately, I had three choices. I could go to Bentley University outside of Boston at $20,000 a year, so in total, 4 years, $80,000. I don't like that. Or I could go to St. Michael's for $5,000 a year, or I could go to my third choice, UVM, for free. And because I was a low-income student, UVM has great programs. At the time, it was called Catamount Commitment. Right now, I think it's called the UVM Promise, where if you make below a certain adjusted gross income, you're going to go here tuition-free. And if you get outside scholarships, you could possibly cover your housing and meals and stuff like that. And so it became very economical for me to come here and basically go for very, very, very little debt.
Excellent. All right, so we had a couple more things here, and then maybe a couple minutes for questions. So one thing to think about is what happens afterwards. Do students go back for a second year? Do students graduate from that school in a reasonable amount of time? Do they get jobs afterward or continue their education afterwards, say in a master's degree program? So all of that information is stuff you can look up. We'll give you some links on how to do that. But those outcomes information can be important. Because you want to make sure you go to a school that's going to be worth your time, and you're putting in a lot of time, you're spending a lot of money. It can be really helpful to look at that. And if you're seeing a school where hardly anybody goes back for their second year, it's a factor. Now, do realize that not every school is the same. So Community College of Vermont, if you look that number up, yeah, a lot of people don't go back for their second year. But that's very typical of that school, because people start there, they get 1 year done, and then transfer to another program. They only offer 2-year degrees, so do people graduate in 4 years? Well, no, because a lot of people are done before that. So understand the type of school you're looking at, compare that to the statistics as well. All right, so here's some resources for a couple places where you can do a school search is Big Future, which is the College Board site, and then College Navigator. These are all links on the website. So again, as was mentioned in the introduction, if you go to vsac.org/ccp, there's like handouts and links are all available there. So those are two. If your school uses something like Naviance, there's a school search in there, which can be really helpful. College Scorecard is a place to go to get information about college costs, net price. There's lots of estimates in there. They have all kinds of statistics and data as well. This Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that has a really good tool for understanding like how much would I borrow. In this first year, if it costs this and I have to borrow this, it'll like do the math for you and say, oh, well, you'll have to borrow this much over the whole time, and here's how much your loan payments would be. So if you really want to do a deep dive into that, that's a great site for that. Going to college fairs, doing campus tours, a great way to connect with people about particular schools. NEACAC is the New England Association of College Admission Counselors. The reason that's helpful to know is if you go to their site, they will list college fairs across the Northeast. So maybe you're close enough to Massachusetts, or you want to go visit a school that's hosting a college fair. You want to go to Amherst because they're hosting a college fair. You can find the dates for that. There's spring ones. There's often ones in the fall. There's usually one that's in this area in September. And then, of course, use your school counselor as a resource. So again, all of these things, there's handouts over there that have some of this information. Some of this is online. So I just want to make sure you have that. So then finally, a couple things to be thinking about is be open. So if you're thinking like, I want to go to UVM and that's it, then, okay, maybe that's going to work out great for you, but I would encourage you to give yourself some more options. So try to keep things a little bit broad. Be open to the idea that you might discover a school or something about yourself that changes what you might be doing in terms of your applications. A key thing is to know it's okay to change your mind. I worked with a student who like from middle school on was saying, marine biology, that's what I want to study, and then got to senior year and was like, yeah, I went to SeaWorld and it was terrible. I don't want to study that at all. Like, it's okay to change your mind. It's totally fine. Like I said, there are some schools that allow you to go. Maybe you say, I'm going to study this. You get there, you start taking some classes in that, and you realize, this really isn't for me. You can change your mind. So really important to know you can change your mind. Do some research ahead of time. Helpful to get people around you who can support you, whether that's a parent, school counselor, your neighbor, another adult in your life. Like, get some people who are going to help you out and just support you, especially if you're feeling like, I'm so overwhelmed. Can you help me out? Can you just talk this through with me? Or people who actually have information, like, say, your school counselor. So that's some tips and tricks to leave you with. Okay, we're basically out of time. We can take one question. How about that? Yes. Thank you.
How do you rank schools in terms of academic quality? Like, how do you determine what's a better school than another, just in terms of the program and the academic piece of it?
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, there are, like, yeah, you can look at U.S. News and World Report. That's going to give you some rankings. There are other sites that will give you rankings. There are, on some of the tools I showed you, like the College Navigator, that will list majors, how many students are in them, that kind of thing. You know, if you see a school where lots of people are in a major, that could be a good sign. Talking to people at the school can be good. I mean, it's somewhat subjective, so like it's not like for every major you can find out like what's the best school. But yeah, that's not really much of an answer, but it's something to be digging into. Like, talk to people you know, talk to your school counselor, you know, and find out like what do you know about the school. Like, are people staying? That's a good way to look at it. Lots of people stay for their second year or graduate in that program. That's a good sign. All right, so we got to wrap it up because you got to get to your next session. So thanks for coming. I'll be up here if you have specific questions. Come grab me.